Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Dychronic here on this Destiny 2 video, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Xur, his location, his random rolls, and my recommendations for March 5th, 2021. What is that? I'm gonna peel your orange? That's great, love it. You can find the Xur in his regular location on the EDZ, so just head over to the Winding Cove and make your way on top of this little mountain cliff here, and you can find the Xur until next Tuesday. This is a high overview of everything that he does have available, in case this is all you cared about. Starting up with the weapon today, we have the TELESTO, which acts very similar to a lot of other fusion rifles. You charge it and you shoot it, and it shoots out 7 little bolts, except those bolts are actually explosive bolts and proximity detection explosives. So you can just coat an entire area, and anytime any enemy comes nearby, they all explode on that enemy. And on top of that, multi-kills of this weapon also immediately reload your equipped kinetic and energy weapons from reserves, which I imagine also includes this weapon. And finally, the catalyst, I believe, just makes its magazine go up to 7 and then maybe something else, but nothing really that significant. From my experience in PvE, this thing doesn't really do a lot of damage. However, there have been quite a number of glitches over time that have made it a ridiculous powerhouse or super generator, and I'm not too sure if there's something new. In the Crucible, it's okay for a fusion rifle. It's nice to be able to coat entire doorways, but it's nowhere near as good as it was before. Whereas before, it was like 50 damage per shot or per bolt, and that's like 50 times 7 for each burst. Keeping in mind, a Guardian usually has around 200 health, so it's way too powerful before, and now it's where it should be. And from my experience, it's not really a meta weapon for PvP or PvE, just one of those fun weapons. Moving on to the Hunter exotic today, we have the FOETRACER. In my opinion, one of the more underrated exotics in the game due to the fact that usually you have a better option in almost every scenario, but this is one of those great universal exotics that works great if you don't have a lot of the other ones. Main perk, Relentless Tracker, visually marks targeted enemies. So basically, if you're looking in their direction, you get like a little stinger hit marker that is able to be seen through walls, and you deal more damage to low health marked enemies. And this is actually enemies with like 10 or 20% health, which is basically not worth it in most scenarios. The big part here is that you can see enemies through walls. The downside is that it's usually an enemy that you already know about, but it is extra information similar to the advantages the one-eyed mask used to have. As far as the role goes, I like to see a lot of recovery and mobility, and technically I believe this to be more of a PvP exotic, so more resilience and strength. So overall, good stat total, has most of the things you want, and I would highly recommend it if you like the idea of it. Although you might want to try to find an ornament for this thing, because it's in my opinion never really looked that great. You know, I just remembered this does actually kind of look like that Star Wars helmet from the Ewok planet, Endor, I knew the planet, the scout helmet from the stormtroopers. Moving on to the Titan exotic today, we have the MK44 Standaside. I always like to think of this as basically the poor man's insurmountable skull fort, but a more universal version that doesn't really do anything that well. Basically, it grants you an overshield while you're sprinting at full health. You have to be sprinting at full health with one of these shoulder charge abilities, and then hits with those abilities recharge a portion of your melee energy. You get about half of your melee back whenever you get hits with those shoulder charge abilities, and you only get that overshield while you're at full health and sprinting. So it's a lot of requirements to do something that's so very minimal in the first place that I really just don't like it. Insurmountable Skull Fort gives you your full melee back, and it also gives you healing. Obviously it's only arc based, but I just don't know when I'd want to use this. As far as the stat total goes, it's pretty much just level across everything. I would like to see things like mobility and strength for this particular exotic, and recovery just because I always love recovery. So not a terrible roll, not something that I would really scoff at, but again, not really something that I want to use. And it still doesn't have an ornament. This is how you know when Bungie doesn't care about an exotic, is when it has 0 ornaments. Although, you know, to be fair, Anarchy got its first ornament recently. And finally, for the Warlock exotic, probably the most worthwhile exotic available here today, we have the Phoenix Protocol. If you've never heard of it, kills and assists that you make while standing in your Well of Radiance return super energy. It's very important that you understand it's kills and assists that you make. It is not your teammates' kills anymore. That was changed a few seasons ago. Even then, I still consider this to be the #1 Warlock exotic in the game. Now, specifically, it is a PvE exotic with the ability to get your wells back that more frequently is so powerful in the highest level of play. Unfortunately, it doesn't have the best possible role. However, its role is not terrible either. As far as the role goes, I like to see a lot of recovery and intellect, as it's great synergy with this exotic, and a secondary in discipline, because if you're going to be using this exotic, you have to use Attunement of Grace, which gives you the ability to get healing grenades, and more of those is always beneficial to your team and your generation. So overall, not a terrible role. The total has a little bit to be desired, and the distribution is a little bit wonk, but if you don't really have that many of these, it's a great option. But again, unfortunately, I don't have any ornaments for it. It kind of has a weird coloring system where this little section here never ever gets colored no matter what you're doing, so you're always gonna have this like bronzing thing right here in the middle. Brass? Yeah, brassing thing right here in the middle and the sides that you can never really get rid of unless you have an ornament. Outside of that, make sure you pick up your exotic cipher quest. If you did not know, he actually has an exotic cipher quest, which I already have, and you can complete things like Strike, Crucible, and Gambit, and higher level of those stuff to be able to get an exotic cipher, which you can either spend on one of the exotic archive items, or you can spend it on an exotic engram, and these engrams are guaranteed to be an exotic that you've never received before, or a high stat roll. Not or, but and. Yeah, and then great, I got an MK44 stand aside. Oh hey, look, an exotic cipher. And considering I have literally everything from the exotic archive, I mean, I might as well spend it on an exotic engram and get a chance of a high stat roll item. Ooh, a Synthoceps. I think I already have a really, really good Synthoceps, but you know, I never say, yeah, look at this one. It's a 64 base. Let's equip it here. Yeah. And that is going to be the end of the video. Let me know in the comments down below if you have any questions or concerns. Also, come check out my live streams that I have right after these videos. You can see on screen right now all the times that I live stream at twitch.tv/Dychronic, link in the description down below. We oftentimes do open lobbies for raids, nightfalls, all that whatnot, kind of a focus on PvE, but sometimes we do PvP as well. And of course, I always want to give a big thank you to my patrons on Patreon. If you did not know, one of the tiers on Patreon is being able to get on this list at the end of the credits. I'm going to try to read it as fast as possible. So, big thank you to Betty Voodoo, Mom Dad, Joe Smith, Munning, Natalie Hoppins, Steve Bachmanowicz, Justin Rare, Raymond Showman, Unipanther, Cole Sherm, Casey Reagan for their support on Patreon. God damn, I did that one on first try. And that's going to be the end of it. My name has been Dychronic, and I'll see you guys on the next one.